Gérard Prunier, africanista francês, autor de vários livros sobre o continente, tem uma explicação histórica para a corrupção: herança colonial.
Les problèmes internes à l'Afrique sont les problèmes de la colonisation. Mais ce qui a été, à mon avis, le grand péché de la colonisation, c'est pas d'avoir colonisé l'Afrique, c'est de l'avoir quitté trop vite, n'importe comment, et en laissant au pouvoir des élites d'une corruption abominable. Et pourquoi? Parce que c'était justement un double modèle. Le modèle, souvent, des grandes compagnies coloniales, je ne parle pas des administrations gouvernementales, je ne parle pas de l'administration étatique britannique, belge, anglaise, française, bon. Je parle des grandes compagnies privées qui ont littéralement pillé le continent. Et ensuite, d'un modèle complètement extroverti parce que l'Africain ne voyait pas comment la richesse se créait. Car ce qui venait en tant qu'investissement productif en Afrique, c'était au contraire de l'argent public. L'Afrique a été une fantastique machine à voler le contribuable britannique, français ou belge. C'est-à-dire, lui payait des impôts, ces impôts servaient à faire des ports, des routes, des aérodromes, des hôpitaux.
Pour le bénéfice des compagnies.
Pour le bénéfice des compagnies privées, qui, elles, évidemment, récoltaient le bénéfice de l'investissement public de la puissance colonisatrice. Mais l'Africain ne voyait pas ce fonctionnement. Qu'est-ce qu'il voyait? Des beaux messieurs devant des bureaux bien propres qui semblaient disposer de moyens extraordinaires. Quand des Africains se sont assis au même endroit, ils ont voulu avoir la même chose. Et le moyen le plus simple, c'était de voler l'aide étrangère.
Há outras formas de ajuda com bons resultados. Em países como Moçambique e Etiópia, a ajuda externa contribuiu para programas de saúde que cortaram a mortalidade infantil em 40%. Na Tanzânia, permitiu o ingresso adicional de 3 milhões de crianças à escola. E o Fundo Global de Combate à AIDS fornece remédios antivírus a 1,5 milhão de mulheres grávidas. A crise econômica mundial dos últimos 2 anos jogou água fria nas promessas de países ricos reunidos em 2005 num encontro do G7 voltado para a África. Os líderes do grupo se comprometeram então, na cidade escocesa de Gleneagles, que até 2010 iriam acrescentar 21,5 bilhões de dólares às suas doações regulares à África. Só que até o fim do ano passado, só tinham dado mais 7 bilhões, com outros 3 bilhões aprovados, porém ainda não entregues. Itália e França foram os principais responsáveis pela redução. Silvio Berlusconi e Nicolas Sarkozy culparam a crise. O Sem Fronteiras em Londres consultou outros especialistas em assuntos africanos sobre a questão de ajuda externa ao continente.
I think that some of the aid, depending on how it's been targeted and how it's been given, has been absolutely crucial. For instance, in keeping millions of Africans alive during the AIDS pandemic. I think that perhaps what has been focused on too much is the aid that has been utilized corruptly, that has found its way into private pockets. And a lot of that is due to the way in which this aid is dispensed. For instance, there are great links between the ways in which aid is dispensed in Africa and arms deals. So that Western countries often give money, but it's then money that has to be used to buy, for instance, arms and weapons from those same governments who gave that money. In addition to which, at the same time that aid is being given, and there is all sorts of talk about the importance for good governance, for overcoming corruption, etc., those same governments giving the aid have been acting as salesmen for their arms companies and other companies, their oil companies, their other extractive industry companies, perpetuating the very corruption that they're speaking out about. So I think that where aid has gone wrong, and of course there have been massive problems with aspects of aid, I think that the giving countries are in some ways as culpable as the receiving countries.
You organized this meeting, this discussion about AIDS, the politics of AIDS to Africa. You know, there's a theory that aid to Africa has actually not helped the Africans because it created a culture of dependency and they don't help themselves. What do you think of that?
What we miss is that in the process of giving aid, there's a lot of distortion. That a lot of the aid that's been given in the last 30 years was never given to help growth in Africa. That was the starting idea, but by the time the aid was given, it had become, let's consolidate this Cold War alliance, let's give some aid to our own companies so that we can sell arms or we can sell tractors or whatever it is to this country. And when you really take aid project by project, grant by grant, and you say, what was the real aim of this particular grant? What we find is very often the aim was to help somebody back in the United States, somebody back in Europe, somebody maybe back in Brazil. So
Like
aid
Mobutu
can work.
Example, for instance, there was a lot of aid given to Mobutu that is counted.
It's the classic case, you know, all during the 1960s and 70s, a large amount of money was given to Zaire, or what we now call the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Nobody was in any doubt that that money was going to the Swiss bank accounts of the then head of state, Mobutu. But they wanted him on their side in the Cold War. So it's too easy and too wrong to look back and say all those millions didn't produce any growth, didn't produce any economic benefit, didn't lift people in the Congo out of poverty. It's disingenuous, it's wrong, because it was never intended to do that. Of course it didn't do that. And it doesn't mean that we can't do aid more helpfully, better and right.
And this idea that as well-intentioned as it might be, and even if it's done correctly, it might create this idea of dependence. You don't buy that?
Well, that's in the structure of the aid. If you go in and say, we're going to make a perfect village, and we're just going to keep pumping money into you to keep this village perfect, which is what some are trying to do, then you are going to build dependency and you're not going to make aid work. If you go to a community and you say, what is really your priority? What are you guys putting your own resources into? What is it that really matters to you to make work and to make your community work? And you get behind that community and help them do what they have prioritized, what they're putting their own work and resources into, you can make aid work.
O Brasil tenta oferecer ajuda aos países africanos sem as imposições típicas das relações do hemisfério norte com o hemisfério sul. Os brasileiros já passaram pelas mesmas dificuldades e humilhações vividas hoje pelos africanos em suas relações com o mundo rico. O Brasil não tem dinheiro sobrando, mas domina a tecnologia de produção agrícola. Por isso, saiu em busca de parcerias para ajudar os africanos a aumentar a produção de alimentos e a iniciar uma agroindústria de biocombustíveis. A Embrapa, empresa brasileira de pesquisa agropecuária, por exemplo, tem 40 projetos na África, onde o Brasil entra com a tecnologia e o dinheiro vem de economias desenvolvidas ou de países africanos mais ricos ou mesmo da iniciativa privada. Não é uma relação sul-sul pura, seria mais sul-norte-sul.